His first 10 years in the NFL, he was a Pro Bowler all 10 years. He's going to get into the Hall of Fame, and he is now joining us live. So it is funny. My thing with I'm not a romantic because I didn't grow up with that, right? And so I look at OBJ, and I'm like, he's hurt a lot. He's expensive. And in New York and Cleveland, I don't think he made the teams necessarily better. I just thought he was great. But I know there are people. Do you feel this morning in Cleveland, is there a loyalty to him, to the Browns, into the Brown fan base? Or do you think a lot of people are like, hey, man, it's over. It didn't work?
I think there's a little bit of a loyalty thing with the Browns because I think you've seen the best version of Odell Beckham with the Cleveland Browns from a personality and a buy-in and a team standpoint. And I don't think that was the guy that you saw when he was with the Giants. And so I think in Cleveland, they really feel like Odell has put his heart and soul into the Browns team, into his performance. Now, it's come up short, certainly, of where the expectations were when they traded for him, but they definitely feel like there's a little bit of loyalty built in there because Odell really has poured a lot of himself emotionally into this Browns franchise.
I do think, Joe, that you have to, in the NFL, for instance, when Peyton Manning was in the AFC South, everybody in the division went out and tried to get pass rushers because you knew you were going to face Peyton for 10 years, right? Like that's the reality of it. Big Ben is in your division. You better get pass rushers because if you give him time. And so I do look at the Cleveland Browns, and Joe Burrow has been better than I would have ever imagined. Does it make Cleveland a tad nervous knowing now we got Ben twice a year, now Lamar twice a year? Oh, my God, Burrow looks like a star. Could that end up not being helpful to Baker Mayfield going forward, that you can't win your division if you have the fourth best quarterback, right?
Well, I think it certainly puts a lot more pressure on Baker Mayfield because for a while there, it was always like, okay, yeah, we know the Bengals are kind of that team in the AFC North that you're going to be able to beat them if you play decent football. And now all of a sudden they've got this quarterback who's playing really good football and whose sky is really the limit at this point. And so for Baker now, he's got to be on his best game when they go against the Bengals in order to get that victory. And you got to assume if the trend line heads in the same direction for Joe Burrow, that he's going to be one of these Pro Bowl type guys just probably by next season. And so I think for Baker Mayfield to have Big Ben, Lamar Jackson, and now one of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL also in your division, that certainly puts a lot of pressure on him being at his best every single week because you're going to play those teams in your division 2 times every single season. And then if you get to the playoffs, a lot of times you might even see them again there.
You did not miss a single game in your career until your final year. And I've always thought that some people, I've covered pro and college teams and NBA teams. Some guys get hurt. And I like Jimmy Garoppolo, but he got hurt in New England, and he got hurt in San Francisco, and he's hurt again. And, Joe, you've been around this league. Some guys, the DNA, genetic, they get hurt more. Like, I think in San Francisco this morning, Joe, you're not going to say it publicly, but I think you got to move on in that division with Russell Wilson and Kyler. I mean, you look at Garoppolo. Isn't he now an injury-prone player?
Well, I think you have to be realistic if you're the 49ers, right? Jimmy G's been great for them when he's been available. He's 22-8 as the starter, took him to the Super Bowl, and they were right on the cusp of being Super Bowl champions. He may have been the MVP, but when you look at a quarterback, you've got to have that guy on the field. He's by far the most important position on the field, and availability a lot of times is the most important ability when you're talking about that quarterback position because you can't put a ton of resources in the backup quarterback position, and no matter who you put back there, a lot of times you're not going to be able to continue the same performance on offense with the backup. And so for Jimmy G, while he has played well and he has led their team to a pretty solid record, and obviously they were expecting really big things from this year, when you get injured over and over and over again and you have these wasted seasons like the Niners have had with Jimmy G, they got to start asking the tough question. I think what they're going to do is they're going to use the rest of the season that they don't have Jimmy G here until he comes back from that ankle injury and kind of evaluate what that team looks like in his absence and try to figure out, hey, maybe there's an opportunity to upgrade in this offseason because they do have a front-loaded contract with Jimmy G. So they can get out from under that and they can dump him at the end of the season without huge cap implications. And depending on where they are in the draft and depending on where the quarterbacks are at the end of this season, they might have an opportunity to make their team better with somebody else not named Jimmy G.
You went through a lot of quarterbacks in Cleveland. Are you surprised how good Herbert is, Burrow is? Are you surprised? These guys didn't even have a training camp. They didn't have preseason. I mean, Joe, you went through a lot of quarterbacks. Are you a little shocked by how good they are?
Well, I'm surprised and I'm a little jealous, right? I played for 20-some quarterbacks during my career. I played for all sorts of rookies, and hardly any of them ever had the success that all these young guys are having this year. And I would have bet my house without OTAs, without training camp, that all these young quarterbacks were going to struggle mightily, especially the guys that don't make the off-schedule plays. Because when you're making off-schedule plays like the Lamar Jackson, like the Russell Wilson, when he was a younger player, you can overcome not understanding what the scheme is on offense that you're trying to run. You can overcome not being able to diagnose the blitzes and the coverages, because if you run around long enough, somebody's going to get open and you can make a play. But a lot of these guys are making plays in the pocket, in rhythm. They're reading coverages. They're going through their progressions. They've really impressed me so far this season, and that was probably one of the big bright spots for the NFL is the performance of these rookie quarterbacks thus far in the NFL season.
I totally agree. Now, Joe is part of the NFL Network. I'll watch him tonight, Packers, Niners. You're going to see him on the NFL Network's Thursday Night Football Crew, 7:30 Eastern kickoff. You do a great job, great sense of humor on that show, Joe, and we appreciate you stopping by today.
Thanks for having me on, Colin.
You bet. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.